Then you have the drama on Capitol Hill and Dianne Feinstein debating the report that everyone was waiting for, including herself.
It looks to be a product of an incomplete investigation that was limited, perhaps by the White House. I don't know.
All right, former FBI Special Agent Thomas Baker. Tom, what she's alluding to is the fact that it ended up being 9 completed interviews that did not include interviews with Dr. Ford or Brett Kavanaugh, on to say a number of other witnesses who, to believe Senator Feinstein, would have corroborated at least some of the allegations made by Dr. Ford. The FBI says, or in talking to the folks they did, none of them could. But your thoughts?
My thoughts is the FBI here is doing what they do best, investigate. And they've done this before. This is not unusual, going back and redoing a background investigation. And a lot's at stake here, and not just for Judge Kavanaugh, but a lot's at stake for the FBI. They had to do this one right, and let's hope they did.
You say let's hope. I mean, obviously, it's predictable that after something like this emerges, some will find solace in it, others not so. Dr. Ford's lawyer already announced before this thing even came out that the Republicans' promise of a fair process was, in her words, merely lip service. Other Republicans on the Republican side seem to be saying this was as fair and thorough as we hoped it would be. So 2 very diametric views of this.
Well, it was very hard, and it is unusual, Neil, but things like this have happened before. But in this instance, it's very hard to conduct a background investigation with people who want their lawyers present, which is the case, of course, with I believe, with the 2 accusers. That's one of the unusual things about it.
Right. And one of those accusers was Deborah Ramirez, with whom they did chat, and someone who did share the incident that she did or heard about it when they were at Yale. Leaving that aside, though, I mean, I think it was Chuck Grassley who said nothing in this that we didn't already know, so it's time to vote. What do you think of that? Was this a waste of time? It confirmed what Republicans said. It gave a little bit more time for interviews. Democrats complaining that not enough people were interviewed. Everyone's going to be stuck in their positions on this, but it's kind of falling out exactly as I suspected it might.
Well, what happened here was the FBI had to do it. They were asked by the White House to do it, who had been asked by the Senate to do it.
Right.
And they have probably incorporated, either directly or by reference, the previous 5 or 6 in-depth backgrounds that were already done on Judge Kavanaugh, even before he ever was a judge. And as to the Ramirez matter, that was done at Yale. You can bet your bottom dollar in that investigation for him for circuit court judge, and probably the earlier ones, that at Yale College and Yale Law School, dozens and dozens of people, professors, fellow students, people who were there at the time, were interviewed. So all of that has to be taken in mind and put together with the current report.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because if you do combine the 2, it's better than 30 people who were interviewed and queried. Leaving that aside right now, where do we go from here? I mean, this became an investigation about checking the reliability and the truth of a man who might have understated how much he drank when he was a teenager. And I even heard critics of the judge saying he probably perjured himself. And I'm thinking to myself, he would have perjured himself, understating how trashed he got. That's weird. I'm sorry, the whole thing is weird.
Well, I didn't see any indication. I have no belief that he perjured himself in any way at any time in this whole process.
That's what it came down to, that would be an issue. Yeah, perjury over your recollections as a teenager, whether you drank or drank too much or drank too, you know.
And normally in these backgrounds, for adult people in these very high-level positions, in the FBI we call it spin investigations, virtually every federal judge and cabinet members, people at that level, they often only go back to about age 18 and bring it forward from there in the person's life. We do also now, it's kind of interesting, we go back and find their birth certificates. Of course, we don't want any Manchurian candidates.
But are you worried that we set a new precedent here as an FBI guy, and knowing how the FBI works, that part of a routine sort of background check is going really far back. I mean, high school, middle school, whatever.
Yes.
And that might just become part of the process.
Well, I am concerned about that, and I don't think it should be. And, you know, youth is youth, and people do make mistakes and oversights. But the other thing, Neil, here to keep in mind, contrary to what's been reported so widely, it has been reported and accurately that the FBI does not make conclusions. But they do in every one of these background reports have what we call a synopsis or an executive summary. And in that, one of the things highlighted is no derogatory information found, or if there was derogatory information found and resolved, or derogatory information regarding, and then it would say, you know, finances or whatever the issue was. So although there's not a recommendation or a conclusion, there is a synopsis that any intelligent person reading it could draw their own conclusions.
Right. You'll pick out the stuff that supports whatever you're arguing, and the other side, whatever it is arguing. That's very well stated, Thomas. Thank you very, very much.